Do you feel that the justice system and the people on the bench have an understanding of the seriousness of this?
I think, and I'll let Michelle take most of this, but just to make the point, there was a book written in the early 1980s by a guy called Lipsky, and it was called Street Level Bureaucrats, and it was a fundamental reading piece for anybody who wants to study organisations. And he looked at judges, he looked at members of the police departments in the United States and other administrative civil service roles. And he found that with judges, just like with everybody else, they don't even look at their cases till it's put in front of them. They don't give it any detail because they've got 200 cases to deal with over the next week. And so they don't go into any real detail about it. And they always err on the side of officialdom. And officialdom always has the money to present their case through top solicitors, etc. So, for instance, the amount of mothers that can't even appeal a decision, they don't have the money to appeal it. Can't get anybody to take the case on, even though it could be a glaring injustice. And so the judges, to a degree, have their hands tied with time and all, like everybody else with everything else. But it takes a judge, like anybody else, to understand that you're dealing with human lives here. And you're dealing with lives that have not yet been destroyed. If you get a guy and he's 50 years old and he's been robbing shops since he was 20 and he has a drug addiction for the last 30 years, you might say to yourself, well, there's no fixing that man to a degree. He's going to be up again. But these are babies. These are just little babies that have their whole life. And that decision that you make, Judge, in this day is so important. And it's so important that when you hear that a mother is not speaking up, ask why not? Why not? But Michelle, I'll let you.
Yeah, so Deputy, in relation to judges, we speak on behalf of the mothers that have come to us, and Anna, as she's spoken about the podcasts that the series that she recorded. From those interviews, the mothers do not feel like they can get good representation in court. A lot of them rely on legal aid and feel it falls short of their needs and their children's needs. We've discussed privately with the mothers, we wonder, should the children actually have legal separate representation? But that's another avenue. But at the end of the day, the mothers do not feel represented and sometimes have to represent themselves with no knowledge of the law but the very simple fact of the matter is whether, you're legally trained or the truth, they feel, is not put towards on their file to the actual judge, for the judge to adjudicate in a balanced way. So they feel like their story hasn't been given to the court in a balanced, and sometimes a report that has been made about that mother, which falls, Deputy, into that in-camera rule, sometimes they don't see those reports, so how can a mother fight her case in court when perhaps the judge doesn't even realise that mother in front of him has not seen the documentation that Tusla has written about that mother?
Just one brief question, if I may.
Yep, okay.
Have you looked at the experience in other European countries, comparable situations, maybe Northern Ireland or other European countries?
Deputy, earlier this year, legislation was brought in the UK that has lifted the in-camera rule, so that presently the in-camera rule is gone in over half the family courts in England and Wales. So that is something that really needs to be done here in Ireland. And just to pick up on your point about justice and the courts, Ellen Coyne did a report earlier this week in the Irish Independent. Tusla appears to be, in my opinion, a law unto itself. Tusla is in breach of 6 High Court orders to provide specialist care for vulnerable teens. Now, if I fail to comply with a High Court order, I will deem to be in contempt of court, and if I fail to purge my contempt, I will end up in jail. Now, one of the mothers of one of the children actually brought a case to the High Court in April to have Tusla be found to be in contempt of a High Court ruling to provide specialist care for her son. but the judge in that particular case actually rejected her appeal. So, as we speak, Tusla is currently in contempt of 6 High Court orders to provide specialist care for vulnerable teens. And the other thing is Finbar has spoken up about what the social workers have done. Now, the registration body for Tusla is Coro, and it was the subject of a primetime RTE Investigates programme by Barry O'Kelly last year. And one of the things that he uncovered is that Tusla is the body that's supposed to regulate psychologists, but it actually hasn't taken the moves to do that. So currently anybody can call themselves a psychologist, and they can go into court and they can present expert reports. And the judges then are actually making their judgments based on these expert reports that are coming from people that are not actually qualified. And we're all familiar with Morris, McCabe and Tusla and the copy and paste, it was all dealt with in the Charlton Tribunal in 2017. The social workers involved, the 3 social workers involved, actually didn't come before Coro until December 2023. That's over 6 years later. And Coro then decided that they were going to carry out this investigation in private. So the whole thing is that there is actually no transparency, and there doesn't appear to be any accountability for Tusla when they fail to protect children. And we actually have a situation earlier this year in February, where Minister Roderick O'Gorman, the Minister with responsibility for children, at Tusla's celebration of 10 years in existence, actually stated, according to Jack Power in a report in the Irish Times, he stated that Tusla never caused him or the government a moment of concern. And that's really alarming, given that retired judge, Mr. Justice Sims, had sent 4 reports to Roderick O'Gorman voicing his concerns about issues relating to children in state care. And also, we had the UCD report in June of 2023, a very comprehensive report, I might add.
UCC, was it?
UCD, yes, where children in residential care were being trafficked by predatory males into the sex industry. Deputy Pather Tobin in February here in the Dáil raised the situation with one child who had gone missing, and she was missing for 14 months, and she was actually found in a brothel, locked up in a brothel. So these are the kind of issues that we're dealing with. And